Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into a topic that I know a lot of people are curious about.
Yeah, definitely a lot of questions out there about this one.
It seems like everywhere you turn these days, someone's talking about vaping. You see the clouds, you smell the interesting aromas.
Yeah, it's certainly become a lot more visible, even in just the past few years.
So that's what we're going to be exploring today.
Yeah.
Vaping. We've got a ton of recent research and some news to unpack. And, well, you know me, I like to go deep. I brought in an expert to help us really, sort through everything.
Happy to be here.
So before we get ahead of ourselves, let's start with maybe the biggest story that landed on our desks, I guess, in the last few weeks. This new study out of Manchester Metropolitan University.
Yeah, this one really shook things up, I think, in the vaping world.
Yeah, you could say that. It's actually suggesting that vaping could be even more dangerous than smoking.
And not just for your lungs either. This study is suggesting potential problems with heart health and even cognitive function.
Whoa, okay, hold on. This is way more than just, is vaping bad for your lungs? Like, this is serious stuff.
Right, it really expands the scope of potential risks.
So before we hear from anyone else, let's really unpack this study. What exactly did these researchers do? How did they, how did they even figure this out?
So they took a group of volunteers, kind of all around the same age, the same fitness level, to try to control for as many variables as possible, and then they put them through these tests, some specialized tests, to see how well their blood vessels could expand and contract.
So like how stretchy they are, basically?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. They also measured blood flow in the brain.
Okay, so hold on. I'm sure there's a reason, but I have to ask, why is that so important for our health? Like the blood vessels expanding and contracting and the blood flow in the brain.
Well, I mean, think about it this way: your blood vessels, right? They're like a network of highways for your blood to travel through.
Okay, I can picture that.
And if those highways can't expand and contract like they're supposed to, they can get clogged up. It makes it harder for blood to flow freely, to kind of zoom through like it needs to. And that can lead to all sorts of problems down the road.
Okay, so like what kind of problems? Give me an example. I need to wrap my head around this.
Well, think about when you exercise,
Hmm.
right? Your heart rate goes up, you need more oxygen, and your blood vessels are supposed to expand to be able to deliver all that oxygen to your muscles. But if your blood vessels can't do that efficiently, well, you might, get tired more easily. You might feel short of breath. It can even affect athletic performance.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to, be out of breath just walking up the stairs.
Exactly. And in the long term, that restricted blood flow, it can seriously increase your risk of things like heart attacks, strokes, all sorts of other cardiovascular problems.
So bottom line, healthy blood vessels.
Yeah.
Pretty important for your overall health. Okay, I got it. So how does vaping and smoking fit into all of this? What did the researchers actually find?
Well, that's the really surprising part. The researchers, they found that both the smokers and the vapors showed similar levels of damage to their blood vessels, so their arteries weren't dilating as well as they should be.
Whoa, okay. That's kind of a bombshell, because so many people see vaping as like this harmless alternative to smoking.
Right, and that's been a big part of the appeal.
But are we saying now that it's not? What's the takeaway here?
Well, I mean, this is what the research suggests, at least in terms of heart health, right? And this is, remember, this is a first of its kind study, so it's really raising a lot of questions and really pointing the way for more research in the future.
Okay, so more research for sure. And it's not just about the heart either, right? They found some connection to cognitive decline as well with both smoking and vaping.
Yeah, the study linked poor blood flow in both the smokers and vapors to potential cognitive decline. They even brought up dementia as a potential risk.
Dementia. Oh, wow, that's really scary.
It is a concerning finding. I mean, think about it. Your brain, it relies on a constant supply of oxygen-rich blood to function properly. But, if that blood flow is compromised, it can affect so many things. Your memory, your concentration, even your mood, even your decision-making abilities can be affected. And over time, it could lead to a higher risk of developing more serious cognitive problems like dementia, like you said.
That's a lot to take in. But the study went even further than all of that, right? They said that vaping could actually be worse than smoking in some ways. I mean, how is that even possible?
Well, according to the lead researcher, Dr. Boyden, vaping might actually lead to more continuous nicotine consumption.
Okay. I don't quite follow.
So basically, he's arguing that it's just easier to, take puff after puff after puff on a vape throughout the day compared to, lighting up a cigarette.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So it's more constant. You're just kind of like passively getting that nicotine hit all the time.
Yeah, you might not even realize just how much nicotine you're actually getting.
Mm.
And that constant intake can really throw your brain chemistry off balance.
Okay, so break that down for me a little. Like, why is continuous nicotine so bad?
So nicotine, right, it's a powerful stimulant, and every time you get a hit, it triggers this release of dopamine in your brain. And dopamine, well, it's the feel-good chemical,
Mm.
it makes you feel good. But when you have that continuous exposure, your brain starts to adapt. And that's where the problem comes in.
Like you build up a tolerance or something?
Exactly. Your brain starts to need more and more nicotine just to get that same pleasure, the same good feeling.
Yeah.
And that's the cycle of addiction. You vape to feel good, but over time you have to vape more and more just to feel normal.
Oh, I see. So it's like a snowball effect almost, you know?
Yeah, it can really spiral.
And this is all, especially concerning when you think about how popular vaping is with young adults.
Especially when you think about, how many young people are vaping who have never even touched a traditional cigarette. It's definitely a growing concern.
Yeah, that's a whole other, can of worms. And it just shows how much we still don't know, I guess.
Absolutely. We need more research to really understand the long-term effects, especially on the brain, especially on young people whose brains are still developing,
Right. We gotta protect these kids.
for sure.
So it's a complicated picture, but I know some people are listening right now and thinking, wait, hold on. I've always heard that vaping is like way safer than smoking.
It's a common perception, for sure.
And they're not wrong. There are a lot of experts and groups out there that still say that vaping is, a much less harmful alternative.
Yeah, we definitely need to look at those arguments too.
Yeah, we've got to, consider all sides. So we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to be digging into those counter arguments to see, what the other side of the story is.
It's definitely an important part of the discussion. So one of the groups that's uh, really pushing back against these new findings is the UK Vaping Industry Association.
Okay, and they would have a vested interest in pushing back, I guess.
Yeah, but they also represent a lot of people who, use and enjoy vaping products.
That's fair. So what's their main point? What's their argument here?
Well, they're saying that millions of people have been using vaping products for years, and they haven't had any major health problems.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. You see people vaping everywhere. It doesn't exactly scream like danger, danger.
Right. And they're saying that all the data they've collected suggests that vaping is, unlikely to be more than 5% of the health risks of cigarettes.
5%. So basically a tiny fraction of the risk.
That's what they're claiming, yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty big difference. No wonder they're, pushing back so hard against this new study.
Yeah, I mean, they're saying that vaping is a much less harmful alternative, and they have a lot of data to back that up.
Okay, so we've got these two very different perspectives here. This new research saying vaping could be worse than smoking, and then you've got, this whole industry saying, no, 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 it's way safer. I mean, where does that leave us?
It highlights how important it is to look at all the evidence.
Yeah.
We can't just jump to conclusions based on one study. Even if it seems really convincing, we need more research.
More research for sure. But in the meantime, what about all the people who are already vaping? Especially, all those young people we were talking about before. Like, what should they be thinking about right now?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the takeaway here is that we need to be cautious. Vaping might not be as harmless as we once thought.
Especially with that whole continuous nicotine thing we were talking about before. If it's easier to get hooked on vaping than cigarettes, I mean, that's a major concern.
It is. And it seems like, the UK government's taking it seriously, too. They actually decided to ban disposable vapes starting in June.
Wow, really? Like a full-on ban.
Yeah.
Do you think that'll be effective? I mean, people who want to vape will probably find a way to vape no matter what, right?
It's true. That's the thing with any kind of ban. It can be effective in reducing access, but can also lead to some unintended consequences.
Like what kind of unintended consequences?
One possibility is that it drives the market underground, right?
Mm.
People start buying vapes illegally, and then you have no control over what's actually in them.
Oh, that's a good point. It could end up being even more dangerous.
Exactly. And another possibility that people just switch to other forms of nicotine, you know.
Like cigarettes, potentially.
That would be like a huge step backwards.
Yeah, so even when these bans are well-intentioned, you have to think about the potential downsides.
Okay, so we've got this new research, raising all these red flags about vaping, and then you have the UK government stepping in with this ban on disposable vapes.
Yeah.
It's a lot to process.
It is, and it's important to remember that, this is an ongoing story. We're still learning more about vaping all the time. There's still so much we don't know. So, where do we go from here? What are the main takeaways, the big points, for listeners who are trying to make sense of all of this?
I think the most important thing is to be informed, do your research, read about the latest findings, talk to your doctor. Don't just take what you see on social media, or what your friends are saying as the gospel.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It's like with anything, you got to be a critical consumer of information, especially when it comes to your health. But I think it goes even deeper than that. It's not just about understanding the science, right? We also have to think about the individual and societal implications of widespread nicotine addiction. Like, it doesn't really matter how you're getting that nicotine.
That's a really important point. We tend to focus on the immediate health risks, which are obviously important, but the broader consequences of nicotine addiction are huge.
Like what kinds of consequences?
Well, we're talking about, productivity losses, uh, healthcare costs. We're even talking about the influence of these industries on policy and public perception.
Yeah, it's not just about individual choices anymore. It's about, the systems that are in place, the marketing campaigns, the social pressures,
Yeah.
and, what are the policies that are shaping our behavior? You
It's
know,
multi-layered issue, yeah.
it's huge. So we need to be looking at this from all these different angles if we really want to understand it and find solutions that actually work.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, we've covered a lot today, from the science of blood vessels to the larger societal impacts of nicotine addiction. It's been quite a journey.
It has. And I think, the biggest takeaway for me is that this conversation's far from over. We're going
Yeah.
to keep learning more and more about vaping and its effects. But in the meantime, we have to stay informed, we have to be critical thinkers, and we got to keep asking these tough questions.
Absolutely. Well said. And for our listeners out there, stay tuned. We'll keep you updated as the story develops. And, this is your health we're talking about, so take it seriously. It's easy to get lost in the data and the headlines and all that. But at the end of the day, this is really about, people's lives.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think we need to approach this whole issue with a sense of compassion,
Yeah.
and understanding. Nicotine addiction is a complex problem, and there's no magic bullet, no one-size-fits-all solution.
Yeah, for sure. We've talked a lot about the choices that individuals are making, but what about society as a whole? What can we be doing to create a healthier environment, especially for young people?
Well, I think education is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that young people really understand the risks of nicotine addiction before they, even pick up a vape or a cigarette.
Yeah, it's kind of like that old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure?
Exactly. If we can prevent people from getting hooked in the first place, I mean, that's a huge win. But we also need to make sure that we're supporting the people who are already struggling with addiction. Quitting nicotine is incredibly difficult, and people need access to resources, to help them through it.
Yeah, it's not easy. And what about the role of the government, of policymakers? I mean, they have a big part to play in all of this too, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, things like taxation, marketing restrictions, even product design can have a big impact on consumption patterns.
So it sounds like, we need a multi-pronged approach here, right? We need education, we need support for people who are struggling, and then we need smart policies to create an environment that actually discourages nicotine use.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's a complex problem, so we need a comprehensive solution.
Right. Okay. We've covered a lot of ground today. I mean, we've gone from, the science of vaping to the big, societal implications of addiction. It's a lot to take in, but I think it's so important to have these kinds of conversations.
Yeah, I agree. I think the more we understand about vaping, the better equipped we'll be to make informed decisions.
Yeah.
For ourselves, for our families, for our communities.
Yeah. And ultimately, that's what it's all about, making informed choices that promote health and well-being.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, hey, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of vaping. It's a topic that we're going to keep following, keep learning about, so we'll be sure to keep you updated as the story unfolds. And until next time, everyone, stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, take care of yourselves.